I'm Mike, and I am the lead character animator on Vector, and today we're going to talk a little bit about that process.
Welcome to Brawlhalla.
So the inspiration behind Vector is that we wanted a kind of robot-y robot in the game. We already had Val, but Val is much more of an android, and so we wanted to try to lean farther into the robot kind of archetype and what robots can do. Vector's development was a little different than a lot of our past legends. In the past, we would often start with a weapon combo and then come up with a cool character archetype that fits that combo well. In this case, we started kind of the other way around. We thought of the character archetype first and thought, okay, what weapons would work well for that? And in Vector's case, we knew we wanted a robot, and we knew it's been a while since Lance came out, so we tried to think kind of what's the coolest way we can make a robot wield a lance. What we ended up with was Vector turning into a jet and flying around. So when we were figuring out Vector's signatures, we took a look at what current threat areas both weapons already covered. I made this sketchy mock-up of every character who wields a lance, how the area that all their neutral sigs cover, side sigs, down sigs, and same for bow. That way it's easier to me to visualize what useful threat areas we haven't covered yet for those weapons, and potential trajectories and threat areas that a new lance or bow legend could kind of fill in those gaps with. We wanted to use this opportunity as a way to have a lance kit that's very unique from all the other lance legends, and that's largely because he can transform into a jet. When designing signatures, I tend to like to favor usefulness over just flair, because I always feel like if you can get a good threat area, then you can make that cool. Whereas if you make a cool move, but it's really hard to hit, it's just you're not gonna get as much mileage out of it. It kind of worked out great for Vector because I think with all 6 of his SIGs, we were able to cover a useful threat area while also making the move very flashy, very interesting, and very unique. So when we're starting to come up with the final move set, a lot of the time I will kind of err towards a move being very, very powerful. And Eric, our balance expert, will kind of rein me in. I like to err on the side of overpowered and then rein things in rather than start underpowered and try to make the move a little bit better. It's easier for me to go too far than bring myself back rather than not go far enough. I use a similar process while animating as well, in that I will take a pose like very far, very extreme, and then if it's a little too wacky, I'll kind of bring it back rather than kind of landing on where I think it should be, but maybe doesn't go quite far enough. And that I feel like helps me get very dynamic posing, very recognizable, action-oriented poses. I think the bow down sig was the only signature that made it past the initial design phase, which is just rough sketches and rough ideas. We'll do like a big board of, hey, here's like 20 different signature ideas. Which one of these are cool? Which one of these fit well? Which one of these would be useful? All the other SIGs went through a lot of iterations. At one point, the neutral bow was going to be, you shoot like a giant mech arrow, but then we ended up with the super cool laser beam idea that incorporates the bow parts and transforms your arm into this kind of giant railgun type thing. That was pretty cool. That wasn't in the initial sketches. The jet form was in the initial sketches. I believe the neutral SIG came from the initial sketches as well. The side and down took a lot of different iteration just because the lance is pretty bulky and there's a lot of different angles that have already been covered by past lance legends. It took us a while to find a good fit for moves that felt unique, didn't have super similar coverage compared to other lance legends, and what we ended up with was that kind of dive angle of the side lance. And also has that cool ground interaction where you kind of level out. And for the down, we have that one where you jump back and shoot bombs down. So when it comes to the special effects for the signature moves, a lot of the times I'll kind of do the character animation with sort of a vague idea of what I want the effect to be, or at least where I want it to be. A lot of the times I'll just kind of blob in like a red cone, like this is where the hitbox is, but I have no idea what it is yet. Sometimes I'll have something in mind and I'll be like, hey, Steven or Jade or Sarah, it would be cool if XYZ, and sometimes they roll with it, sometimes they don't. Well, oftentimes they come up with something way cooler than what I had in mind. So generally I just trust them to make something cool, and they never disappoint. So the most challenging part of Vector's development was how to get him from his humanoid form to his jet form smoothly and quickly to make the SIGs not feel too sluggish, but also so you can tell what's going on, so he doesn't just immediately go from human to jet. Generally, what the legend looks like comes pretty late in the process, but for Vector, we kind of had to reconfigure the order in which we do things so that we could figure out which pieces we move to make him transform, what pieces of the body stay in the jet form, which ones kind of go away or are hidden by other pieces. We ended up doing this really interesting thing that we've never done before, where when he transforms into the jet, we give him extra pieces for his wings and the kind of cockpit section. And a really cool thing about that is, since we have these extra pieces, we can change what those pieces are depending on the character's skin, which makes him feel really unique and really interesting. And that, coupled with the lance being part of his jet configuration and his bow splitting into two swords, I feel like this legend, more so than any other, has a really cool way of kind of showing off different character skins and weapon skins. He has a lot of really cool customizability. So I think my favorite signature on Vector's kit is the neutral lance, specifically the wall interaction of neutral lance. I think is really interesting. A cool thing about the lance neutral sig is that if you use it against a wall, instead of doing the normal kind of you start vertical and level out, you'll do this thing where you go up the wall, and thanks to Lance's very good priority, a lot of the times you'll end up attacking opponents that are going for the finisher, going for the ground pound, and you can get back on stage a little more safely. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Mike, and I am the character animator for Vector, and I hope you really enjoy it.